Hi YouTube, and welcome back to the Exemplary Science Experience with me, Erin. You'll remember last week we talked about false memory and listened to a wonderful rendition of the song Oh False Memory, an aptly named tune for the occasion. Today we're going to be talking about rewards and reinforcements. Now, what's that, you might be saying? Well, today is your day to find out. Let's go learn. Let's talk about something serious here for a second, YouTube. Every year, taxpayers spend $200,000 dealing with drug abuse and addiction, and it costs more than 500,000 lives every year. Crazy, right? Drug use is across cultures and across human history. When people think drugs, they don't necessarily think about the entire category of drugs. Anything from alcohol and cigarettes to heroin and cocaine are all considered drugs and all should be treated as such. Today, I want to talk about addictive drugs. Addiction is classified by three things. There is the loss of control over use, the negative consequences, and the continued use despite the negative consequences and impact on daily life, and the physical or emotional adaptation to the drug. You can think of those as 3 C's: the loss of control, the continued use, and the compulsion to use. Now you know with this YouTube channel that we just don't take things for granted. We need to have empirical evidence. And that means that we need to back this shit up with science. So how do we study drugs without all those nasty little intervening things? Well, if we use humans, we have to convince a human to use drugs. Apparently, ethics don't let us trick people into use. So now we have a self-selection bias. The people that are willing to use drugs are the people that are using drugs. And really, there's a lot of reasons they would have started using drugs. There's a lot of reasons they continue using drugs. And we can't take a base rate for a control of people that don't use drugs because they've chosen not to do drugs, compared to people that do drugs because they've chosen to do drugs. So to make up for these humans' inadequacies in testing, we use mice. Animal studies. This little guy is pretty adorable. But when we're looking at drugs, these little guys show amazing correlation with use. They self-administer, and they continue to do so. They show relapse, and they show dependent behavior. How do you do that? Well, this is what we're here to find out. Let's take a look at your brain. Your brain is operating on the connections between all the tiny little neurons and the neurotransmitters they hold and release. In reward and reinforcement for addictive drugs, the most important of these is dopamine. You might have heard of this. In fact, anything you enjoy probably giving you a boost of dopamine. Eating something delicious, like broccoli. Dancing. Dopamine is just what makes us feel good. The problem with drugs is that they are artificially up in those dopamine levels. And in a lot of the cases, your body responds by diminishing the receptors to take on the dopamine. But we've talked enough about the theoretical stuff that is backed up in all of the research at the end of this video. In the more modern literature, we stopped looking directly at the drug and started looking at other enforcing factors, because we know that people aren't doing drugs in a vacuum. People aren't making these choices based solely on the biological aspects. The biological aspects are incredibly important. Shout out for biology! But really, what we're looking at is the external influences that are reinforcing or influencing in some way drug addiction, the polydrug models, which is multiple drugs at once, which if you look at most users, and especially most addicts, are in play, and as well as behavioral sensitization and the relapse model. Let's talk about some studies. First we have Naxted and Calivas. There's your spelling. Sorry about the pronunciation. These guys worked on cocaine. In rats, they're looking at